Greetings, fair listeners, and thank you for joining me once again as we celebrate stories and storytelling in all their forms, and the bards and artists who bring them all to life. I am the Tale Collector, and your host, Erica Adams. Have you ever come across one of those pieces of art that seems so strange on the surface that it unnerves you in a way that you can't even name? Not nightmare-inducing scary, but just daunting somehow? I was once wandering through the anime section at Best Buy when my eye fell upon a single DVD. For the first 2 milliseconds, all my brain could perceive was a splotchy mess of color. 2 steps and a proper view later, oh, that's a person I'm looking at. Okay then. Still, I felt intimidated enough to move on and all but forget the title, until I saw it appear as an honorable mention on WatchMojo.com's list of the top 10 beautiful anime. Being more experienced in strange art and stories by this time, I decided to revisit it. Let's just say that the phrase better late than never would be a massive understatement. Here's the story of Mononoke, airing from July to September of 2007, and strongly recommended for viewers 17 and up. In Edo period Japan, a quiet, unassuming man makes a living wandering the land and selling the wares he keeps within the large trunk he carries upon his back. He identifies himself only by his occupation, medicine seller. Nothing more, nothing less. However, every so often he comes across cases in which people are attacked or murdered by brutal, even unnatural means, and that is when his real work begins. The medicine seller is also a slayer of Mononoke, evil demon-like entities that feed off the negative emotions of humans before killing them. The only thing capable of neutralizing these beings is the medicine seller's mystical sword of exorcism. Armed with nerves of iron, a sharp mind, and various magical abilities of his own, the medicine seller must root out the Mononoke and learn their weaknesses so that he can destroy them and restore peace to the human world. Looking up this show by name is somewhat tricky, as its title is annoyingly similar to, and therefore often confused with, the film Princess Mononoke by Hayao Miyazaki. Emphasis on the annoying, and therein, sadly, lies one of the reasons why even hardcore anime fans tend to not know it exists. This 12-episode series is actually a spin-off of an anthology series from 2006 called Ayakashi, Samurai Horror Tales, with episodes 9 through 11, collectively entitled Goblin Cat in English, serving as both its basis and its prequel. This show follows a similar format in that the medicine seller is literally the only recurring character in the various 2 to 3 episode stories that otherwise have nothing to do with each other, featuring different characters, settings, and of course, Mononoke to kill. While Mononoke are most certainly monstrosities in every sense of the word, that doesn't mean they attack without some kind of catalyst. Mononoke are formed when unnatural spirits called Ayakashi merge with the deepest darkness of the human heart, born from malevolent thoughts and actions. However, even if the medicine seller is aware of a Mononoke's presence, he can't simply unsheath his sword and vanquish the demon right then and there. Not yet. Even ignoring the disturbingly realistic imp-like face upon his otherwise exquisite-looking sword, it is heavily implied that said sword is actually alive. In fact, there are specific conditions that must be met in order for the sword to be drawn, almost as if the medicine seller is following its orders rather than vice versa. He must first know 3 vital things about the Mononoke in question: Katachi, or form, what sort of creature it is and what it looks like; Makoto, or truth, the factual circumstances of how and why it came to be; and Kotowari, or reasoning/regret, its state of mind and the motive for its attacks. Plot-wise, I find this a very unique spin on the concept of a murder mystery, which is essentially what this series is. The medicine seller is a detective, questioning any involved about their past and learning the heinous secrets lurking underneath the guise of a traumatized victim. Secrets that Mononoke latch onto and thrive upon like parasites. Now this easily could have turned into nothing more than filler before the glorious epic finale in which the medicine seller finally unsheaths his sword to combat the Mononoke. But no. This idea, already supplemented by superb storytelling and character interaction, provides an excellent backdrop for exploring questions regarding the human condition, not to mention helping to make each mystery all the more deliciously tense, the monsters all the more creative, and the final battles all the more riveting. Few of the horror aspects may be obvious at first glance, though. Based in large part on ukiyo-e, a form of art prevalent in Japan from the 17th to the 19th centuries, the visual style of this show has a flat, papery look to it, colorful to the point of being psychedelic, and presented structurally like a Japanese play, with sliding doors acting as curtains at the beginning and end of each episode. Not only that, but aside from the medicine seller, the main characters of a given narrative, no matter how many or few, are given full artistic attention, while any extras are prop-like rather than realistic, with their faces hidden or distorted, while other distinguishing features are almost non-existent. And depending on the respective story, this in itself can also be highly symbolic. Even with such a vibrant background, however, the protagonist himself still manages to steal the show flawlessly. With his multicolored robe, purple headscarf, matted straw-like hair, intricate pieces of jewelry, and blood-red face paint upon his deathly pale skin, the medicine seller's appearance somehow manages to tread a fine, albeit somewhat bizarre line between clown and warrior. But his personality is nowhere near as loud as his attire. He is calm, reserved, and distant, ever observant, rarely fazed, and speaking only when necessary. And even then in a voice of such serenity and composure that can easily catch anyone, from pompous high-ranked officials to disgruntled servants, completely off guard. He can even show a rather snarky sense of humor when he feels so inclined, giving him a bit of humanity to balance out his otherwise somber demeanor. Sometimes this can be harmless, like calling a loudmouth vassal out for insulting him behind his back, but at other times it can seem downright sadistic. At one point in the Nue story, the medicine seller presides as a judge over an incense game. Just as the court official, the samurai, and the fishmonger are about to begin, however, the medicine seller suddenly claims to have made a rather horrible mistake with the preparation of the incense, only to scold himself by ever so gently tapping his head in a mock beating. What's more, this is a character who carries himself with the air of one who has long since made complete peace with the life he lives and couldn't care less about what others think, speaking of the present danger of the Mononoke with no hesitation and absolute bluntness, regardless of any disbelieving jeers or crazed hysteria on the part of those ordinary humans unfamiliar with such things. Interestingly, in spite of his dedication to his work and how seriously he takes it, the medicine seller in fact holds no ties to anything in this world, even to the people he tries to save. Granted, almost no one in this show is innocent of some wrongdoing, but the medicine seller will never mourn anyone's death, accepting such occurrences as just another part of the job, almost to the point of seeming heartless at times, and preferring to focus on exorcising the Mononoke that can sometimes be more deserving of sympathy than the humans who brought them into existence. The most fascinating aspect about the medicine seller, however, is the mystery that surrounds him, borderline antithetical to how a fictional character typically is, or should be, presented. While not revealing everything about a character can make them interesting, sometimes revealing too little can make them confusing, boring, or both. And yet here it is done in a way that is beautifully haunting to the imagination. By the end of the final episode, we don't know any more about this character or his history than we did at episode 1. What's more, it is unclear whether he is really even human. Is he a sorcerer? A god? A spirit himself? Or perhaps some other being for which there are no mortal words? Just as it initially did with me, this show might put some people off due to its rather extreme visuals as well as its genuinely disturbing and violent content. But with a variety of intense and provocative stories to go with an animation style that's mind-blowingly gorgeous even by anime standards, Mononoke definitely deserves more attention than it gets. It can often be well worth the experience if a story and its presentation challenges an opinion or perception one has. some personal truth that one has come to believe, should one wish to explore more deeply. Gather round next time for another tale you may have forgotten or have never heard before. Until then, listeners, may inspiration always find you.